Hello, my name is Professor Margaret Rogers Van Coops, and I'm here today to introduce you once again to my show, The Truth. Over the years, I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of famous people, and I'll say right up front that if you'd like to know more about my life and my journey to become the person I am today, then you might like to get a copy of my book, My Journey into the Oneness, where all my little secrets come out so you can understand what I've been going through and why I am able to do all the things that I do today. So, today, my topic on truth is to talk about the royal family. And you can hear my voice cracking because I have to tell you, in all honesty, that I have royal blood in me, and that was shoved down my throat for as soon as I was old enough to understand that. My family background goes back to easily 1066 on one side and 60 AD on the other, according to research. And somewhere in the 1600s, 1700s, we lost our earlship, our lordship, or whatever ship we had. And yes, we did have naughty people like smugglers and things like that, apparently in the history too. So it was kind of interesting. But what wasn't interesting was that I was brought up with snobbery in terms of the way I looked at the world. I was often told that I couldn't play or talk with certain children because they were lower class than us. And when I was sent to a good school in London where I had a really good education, I'd already decided by 10 years old that I wanted to be a nurse or a doctor. And that happened because an event after the war ended when my father took me to his Suffolk Regiment meetings where I would sit on people's laps and heal them, run along and play a one-armed bandit, and then give them more pennies and play again, and then gonna sit on someone else's lap. And by the time I was 14, the army had disbanded in many ways, but they still met in pubs and things. So I would go along and became an adult in the sense of 16 years old. I was giving counseling to some of the members who were obviously still alive, but wounded or appreciative of the fact that I was made an honorary member of the Suffolk Regiment, the only female member of the Suffolk Regiment. And of course, once it was disbanded into other regiments, um, any records of the fact that I was made an honorary member is probably lost, so can't prove the fact. But it did teach me in many ways to understand how to talk to the leaders of the army corps that was in that particular battalion versus the men. So I knew how to change my dialogue relative to how to speak to people. And so it was quite easy for me over the years developing my psychic ability and my mediumship to evolve to become a spiritualist medium of the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain. But before all that happened, I was actually doing some dancing and singing in shows throughout my teenage years. I loved to be on stage. I enjoyed being able to show my talents and skills off, as my father said, and he was very proud of that, so encouraged me to do those things. But you can understand that with the snobbery of their ancestry, it was very hard for me to be able to make friends with the people I wanted to be friendly with because they were not in my class, or date the boys that I wanted to date because they were not good enough for my class. Yes, snobbery was given to me morning, noon, and night by my father, and a little bit by my mother to behave accordingly to the standards of society. So that was my upbringing, and basically being a nurse was important to me, and also being able to sing and dance on stage was also important to me. And so I managed to find the balance within that and become a photographic model as well. So we've been doing a shoot in Hyde Park, and at the end of the day, the group of staff said, we're going to a little place in South Kensington, and would you like to come? And I'm, well, not really. I don't really drink much. Oh, but you should come. We've all been shooting all day. It'll be a good day. So when I get there, it's downstairs in a local place, and I'm thinking, what kind of place is this? And it's not long before I realize a lot of the people are gay in this place. And after a while, someone asked me, would I like to talk to another Margaret? And I'm like, well, why? Why would I want to? Oh, she just, Margaret, you should go and talk to her. She needs you. So without thinking, I went down and I introduced myself to Margaret. And she invited me to sit down. And the next thing I knew, I was giving her advice, channeling from the oneness, some messages about love and romance and how things don't always turn out, but there is something better coming down to her in the future. And she was very gracious and said thank you. And I said thank you for listening to me, and I hope that helped you. And she said, oh yes, it did. And then I went back to my group of photographers and set designers and so on, and they were all laughing. And I said, what are you laughing at? And they said, you don't know, do you? And I said, what do I don't know? And they said, you've just been reading Princess Margaret. And I said, really? And then immediately I thought, well, so what? She's just another person. But then I realized why I'd given her all the information I'd given her, because like me, she had been tormented all the way through her upbringing to be a social person and not be into the political side of society. Now, here I have to tell you that everything that I was taught, I could honestly say that I reflected everything that the Queen of England went through. I was told I was a lady. I was told I had to know the difference between the House of Commons and the House of Lords, that I had to know these people and talk with these people and address these people relative to their issues of the time. And of course, there were many people in Parliament that I did actually talk to and help. But more importantly was that one time, much later, than talking to Princess Margaret, after the marriages had taken place of the younger generations, Prince Charles and Diane, everyone was rooting for her. But I already knew that she was not the right person for that marriage, but there was nothing I could do about it, so I just kept my mouth shut and didn't say anything. But I had a connection with many of the staffs who were working at the palace, and one day the maid of honor, or whatever she was called, was um, the friend of Diane. The manager of whatever she was doing for her was kept secret, so I didn't really ask too much, but she was a lady in waiting, as they called them in the old days. And she came to me for her own session and she said, I'd like you to do a reading and record it, and I will take it to the princess. Would you do that for me? This is a request. And she sort of nodded and winked a little, and I realized that unofficially, officially, she was asking on behalf of Diane for the reading. So I did it, and I called her, and she came and got it, and she then told me that things were tightening up because of the way the princess was, and that it might be difficult for her to get it to her, but she would do her best. Well, time went by, and I don't know if she got to listen to it. I never heard anything, but I do know that she became more positive in her focus on what she wanted to do, because there was a lot about that in the reading. And I do remember that one of the things in the reading was a very strong command that said, stay on the royal yacht, which basically meant stay within the system, because I sensed danger. And it was said that she should be careful. So time went by, and of course, when she passed, it was shocking for us all. And I, like everyone else, cried, but deep in my heart, I went, oh no, the truth has come to pass. And so we have to realize that when we are talking to people, if we are psychic and if we see something, we have to be very sure that the person wants to hear what we're saying. And in both cases of reading the royal family, I was able to say politely and infer rather than say outwardly what was going to happen. Because you see, it was very much inference that I was taught to do with the upper echelon of people who were governing and famous and actors and whoever. And so it was very important that I was tactful and not too outrageously to the point. But when I came over to America, it was very different. I was still doing acting and general stuff for my fun while traveling to different countries to do the readings and so on. And little by little, I learned to be more explicit, to be more direct, and to say to people, would you like to hear the truth or do you want to hear an inference? I actually said those things because it was new for me to be able to be so direct. And over the years, thanks to my travels around the world, I found that many people wanted a direct uh, response to what they were looking for. And of course, sometimes being direct meant being so honest that they would be disappointed, let down. Now, if I go back to the royal family and to the Queen, for example, as soon as her father died, she lost her playing child, the part of her that could giggle and have fun, because now she had to prepare to be queen. And that meant she couldn't laugh, she couldn't play out in the yard, she couldn't do all the things she loved to do, her sports, her driving with horses or whatever it was the only way she could get away from the family. And so she and Margaret would love to do that, go riding. But the most important thing to understand here is that the two girls were brought up differently. Margaret was allowed to socialize and enjoy herself, and of course, in many ways, she became outrageous. It was her way of saying, I am in revolution of the old system. Nobody's giving me a job to do. I'm here, I want a job to do, but nobody sees me as someone who can do a job well. And I knew that when I gave her that reading and told her that she had to be more mute. She had to be more comply to the scenarios of her household. And I was saying that even though I didn't know she was a princess at that time. So you can understand that when I had to do Princess Diane's reading, I knew exactly who she was, and I knew she was also able to take the truth. So there was a lot of information in that reading, which of course is long gone, and I don't even remember a lot of it because both those people have passed. It's not for me. I walk away from a reading and it is not remembered for me. So I make sure that everyone has a copy, a recording of what I've said so that they can listen to it over and over again. Now, if I go on from there and say, well, my world opened up not only in Europe to all the different people, even the Shah of Iran sought my help when he came to England before he went to France. And he asked me about his country. He sent me his cousins. I talked to them as well. And of course, we all know what happened. And I had the sorrow of being able to see the loss of his family and his sorrow of losing his country and of the great abilities of he too being trained in the same way as Queen Elizabeth to be outright, to be polite, to be open and honest, and to have communication given directly to him, no secrets to be held. And so, yes, I knew he was going to pass over in France, and he knew it too. So, on the other side of the coin, we've got famous people, actors, singers, dancers. I can mention a few. Lulu in England. I also talked to many other people. I'm feeling not to mention their names too much because some of them are still alive and productive, but I knew Arthur Askey and all those kinds of people who were the group in England who held together, and I met them at Associated Rediffusion, where I had a job in those days. And of course, we all went to the cafeteria and chatted a lot, so we got to know one another quite well. But I left there and I moved on. I got married, I had children, and my mediumship grew. And so I became more aware of people who were more famous. And time went by till I ultimately saw so many people. And people would say to me, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "Well, yes, this is their name." And they say, "No, that's not their stage name. They're famous. There's someone else who's very famous." Especially when I came to Europe and America, I always thought when people were famous, they were famous all over the world. Well, I found out no, no, no. They were only famous in the countries they were famous for because no, we didn't have computers and we didn't have all the things we have today. So, what has happened with computers here? The truth is that we have mellowed our social structure to a point where we are saying anyone can have a good education if they are prepared to work and evolve and become something greater in their life. And I'm happy to say I've seen that happen for so many people. But I'm unhappy to say that I've also seen a great deal of people who refuse the education they're given. They refuse to apply for grants. They think they're insecure, unstable in public because they had no training how to behave in a higher class or grade school. So better to stay down in a D or C grade school and play up and be a nuisance to the staff and complain that the system is not good enough because they don't get to have a good education. Well, you can see here that they've chosen the poor side of perceptions and have therefore become a person who's a nuisance to the public by playing up and not applying themselves to education. But on another level, something's more important. The truth is, those people who refuse to go to school and be educated are showing us the history of the old system of black, yellow, white, purple, green. It doesn't matter what color you are. If you are not educated, you're not accepted in society. And if you're not accepted in society, you're seen as a miserable lowlife. Why would one want to refuse to have education? Fear. The fear that one would never pass the exams, the fear that one would get out qualified and not achieve the goals and ambitions of that career. There are many people who have a tremendous amount of gifts that come through their psychic senses, who are out there in this world today as counselors, healers, lecturers, teachers, authors, and so on, who, like myself, have had a good education. But there are also a tremendous amount of people who have struggled and strived to self-educate and who have, by their living example, become models for the children who are not trying to learn and study. So the truth is now that if we want a new generation of children who are going to lead the world in politics, in drama, in arts, and all the things that children would like to do, they must be educated. They must be encouraged to go to school and study and not play hooky and go with their friends up the road and form a gang. If a child can form a gang at a young age, then imagine what a power they would be when they're older with education to form a group that could do something for the gangs who are still lagging behind. So the truth here is today that I must speak to all the young folks, whether you're in a good education system or whether you're literally on the streets. I want you to understand that this is your time to break out of the shell of high class snobbery or of low caste snobbery. And I want you to hear that because it is snobbery. I have a gang and I believe in my gang and I support my gang and I am the leader or I'm a supporter of that gang is snobbery. Just the same as I'm leader of a country and I have to be here and be honest and true and tell the truth about my country, bits and pieces. Okay, so in the same way, the gangs tell you bits and pieces. Who knows all the truth? Who knows the person at the top of the tree who is controlling all the gangs? Well, we're starting to see things close down on that, thank goodness. With the migration of people coming from countries where drugs have been made and sent to the States and then out to the world, it's starting to show up that everybody is arriving here in America. And why? For education, for support in health, for understanding that the world is changing. And so people are migrating and moving. This is not the first time, nor will it be the last time. And there is another reason they're migrating and moving. Earthquakes, floods, changes of climate, and the oceans moving in different vibrational ways because of the heating and cooling in different areas. We are in danger now, and we are beginning to see it. We're seeing the rainfall and the floods and the drenching of homes. We're seeing the energy of politics falling apart all over the world. We are seeing great growth in the artists, the people who are inventors, people who are mediums and healers with new ideas. It is time that we support these people. When Obama brought out his new thing about health for all people, in there was a section on alternative medicine and metaphysical studies. I read it. My husband read the whole thing. I didn't. I just read the part he gave me. And it's there saying the future relies on metaphysical studies, on education of medicine, and it is happening. And people are now coming out, mostly chiropractors and people like me, coming out with research that they've done that is better than the medicine that you have that is made in pharmaceutical companies, that is rubbish, that is poisoning you and killing you. It is time to learn about alternative medicine. It is time to learn about education, grants, and abilities that different organizations will support you with so you can get that education. It is time to realize that you can walk out of the ghetto and move into a different area of life, that you can speak slowly so that you can be understood. I don't speak slowly this way to impress you. It's my natural way. I was taught and trained to speak slowly. And I would say of everyone in this country, America, which is a great country, we have so many different accents. We have so many different people from different countries. Please speak slowly when you're on the phone so that the person listening can understand your accent. Please do not corrupt the English language with old words that are no longer used. Please do not use new words that you've made up that nobody knows what it means. Stick to the dictionary. Learn. My father made me learn every day 10 new words. I would suggest you do that. And here's one, ubiquitous. Ubiquitous simply means everywhere. I would like this video to be everywhere. Can you please share it ubiquitously with the rest of the world so that people will start saying, it is time I climbed out of the box I live in. It is time I seek new horizons. It is time I speak about what I've seen and heard and felt. It is time that I teach, share what I know to the young ones. Blessings. May you enjoy your future.